Welcome! In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a cool 3D text animation in After Effects like this. If you're creating anything scary or horror related, I highly recommend using ominous music or sound effects because that does like 50% of the job for making something scary. For example, here's a clip of The Shining.
Here's Johnny!
But with a simple change of music, it goes from scary horror film to a loving husband and wife trying to spice things up in the bedroom.
Here's Johnny!
So before we get started, I'm going to find some scary, ominous music from the YouTube audio library and bring it into After Effects. And now we can get to the actual tutorial. So the first thing you have to do when creating anything in After Effects is create a composition. I made mine the usual 1920 by 1080 and set it to 24 FPS because that's what most movies are made in, and it's what everyone's used to seeing. So with my composition created, I brought in that music I downloaded and adjusted it to where I wanted it to start playing from. And hearing it now, I realize it's not really that scary. It sounds more like some cinematic trailer music, but that's okay. After that, I'm going to bring in some stock footage of storm clouds I found on the internet to be my background. But the clip is way too short, so to make it longer, all you have to do is go to time, then time stretch, and adjust the stretch factor. I changed mine to 300, which is a lot, and when you stretch out a clip too much, it gets all jumpy like this. But luckily, you can easily make it smoother by enabling frame blending right here. Now that I've got the video to my desired length, it's time to add a few effects to it. Since I want the text to be the main focus, I'm going to add a tint effect to make the clouds black and white, then a curves effect to adjust the brightness and contrast. But you may notice in the dark parts of the image, the different shades of black and gray aren't blending into each other, and there's this harsh line between them. Well, that's because the bit depth is too low. You can change it by going to this little button and setting it to 16 or 32 bits per channel. I just set mine to 16 and hit OK. Now with the background done, we can move on to the star of the show, the text. You can create it by hitting this little button up here and dragging out a text box in the viewport. Then you can type out whatever you want. I'm going to put horror for the tutorial. Then you can center the text with the align box on the side, and if you're wondering how you can get some nice scary text like this, you can go to dafont.com and get any type of font you want for free. Now we're going to use this plugin called Element to make the text 3D. So to do that, you right click in the area down here and create a new solid. Then add element to that solid. You'll see a bunch of drop down menus, but the only one we need to worry about at the moment is custom layers. So click on that, then custom text and masks, and all these path layers will come down. You can just click on path layer 1 and set the box that says none to the text layer that you created. This just lets Element know that you want to use this text and turn it into a 3D model. So after that, you can click on scene setup. It'll open up and you won't see anything. Well, that's because you need to click on extrude to turn your text into an extrusion model. After that, I use the scale tool to give it a little extra thickness. From there, you can go to the presets tab and select what environment you want it to be in. I just picked a nighttime one and moved on to the material. You can select whatever, but I picked this green glass one because I associate green with horror. It reminds me of aliens, or maybe a snot-faced little kid. Real scary stuff. After you find a material you like, you can click on OK in the upper right-hand corner of your screen to close out Element. Now you'll see your 3D text as well as the original text. I just aligned the 3D text with the original since it was already centered in the screen. To do that, you can open up Group 1, then Particle Replicator, to change the X, Y, and Z positions. Once it was aligned, I made the original text invisible by unchecking this little eyeball on the side of it. Now we've got this completely still 3D text. To give it some motion, I'm going to open up Particle Look, then go to Multi-Object and click Enable. When you do that, a bunch of options will pop up, but for this tutorial, we only need to worry about 2 of them. The first is Rotation Random. This will randomly rotate each of the characters, which looks super cool in my opinion. The second is X Displace. This just separates the letters on the X-axis. So make sure the text is how you want it at the end of the animation, then move the playhead a little forward in the timeline and add a keyframe for random rotation and X Displace. I'm also going to add a keyframe for position Z so the text comes flying past the camera in the beginning. You don't have to do it exactly like I am, just have fun with it and do whatever looks good to you. After you set your keyframes, move the playhead to the beginning of the clip, then adjust the settings to how you want it to look at the beginning of the animation. And doing this will automatically create the keyframes for you. I just added some rotation to the letters, increased the X displace a little so they don't clip into each other, and moved the Z position back so the letters start behind the camera and fly past it. Then I highlighted all the keyframes and pressed F9 to easy ease them. After that I pressed play and it looked like this. Looking pretty good, but I want it to come flying in a little faster and come to a slow stop. So I highlighted the Z position keyframes, then opened up the graph editor and moved both these little yellow handles to the left. And this is how it looked after that. Now we're done with animating the text and can move on to making it look nice and saucy. I started by adding a white point light and positioning it behind the text to create a nice rim light situation, which makes it look so much better. Here's it with the light and without. With and without. It actually amazes me how much better it looks with the light. So now we've got our background and some nice text that animates in, but it's missing something. After it comes to a stop, it just sits there completely still, and I'm not seeing enough movement. So to make it look more interesting, I'm going to have it melt down the screen like you saw in the beginning. So to do that, I'm going to add CC Scale Wipe to my 3D text layer. This effect just stretches stuff out in the direction of your choosing. If you set the direction to 180, it'll stretch directly down, and you can just set keyframes to do that over time to have a melting effect. But it doesn't really look that good because it just stretches down without any interesting movement. So you can add a liquefy effect and use this little finger tool to warp it around. I like to start with a smaller brush size, then increase it to move the text around more. And when you press play, it looks pretty cool, but again, I'm not seeing enough movement, so I added a turbulent displace effect. This effect basically creates wave-like distortions on whatever you add it to. I just keyframe the amount to increase after the text started to melt, as well as the evolution throughout the whole clip. Then I added one last effect to the text called Trapcode Shine, which creates these beautiful light rays, and keyframed it to slowly fade in. Okay, now we are finally done with the text, and all that's left to do is add some finishing touches to spice it up a little bit. I added in an overlay of some particles floating around, tinted them green, then added a slight glow. And like the rim light, this is one of those things that just makes the shot so much better. Yum! After that, I selected all the layers and pre-composed them to turn them into a single video clip instead of a bunch of layers. To make it look more interesting, I double-tapped L on the clip to open up the audio waveform, and went to where the little metallic hit happens and keyframed it to zoom in and out. And for the same reason, I added some shake when the song starts up again and the text starts to melt down. After that, I added an old film grain overlay for no reason other than I thought it would look cool, but you can't even really tell it's there. And lastly, I used magic bullet looks to add some finishing touches like a color grade, chromatic aberrations, lens distortion, stuff like that. And with all that, we are finally done with the tutorial. I hope you learned some things. Have an excellent rest of your day or night. Adios, amigos.